This is the 5th annual word crawl. I am so excited to see so many of you. Yay, you. And thanks to Reve for being one of our sponsors. We appreciate their hospitality. Please buy some food, coffee, drink, whatever. Support our sponsors. Thank you very much. So you all know that Word Crawl is a fundraiser for Festival of Words. And Festival of Words is held the first weekend in November. And we bring in some awesome writers and authors that work with the schools and have some workshops and have a day of open mic. And anybody who's interested for the public can come. So we're gonna start this off. I want to introduce to you our timekeeper. Her name is Sally. Sally, would you please stand up so everybody can see the timekeeper? So authors or readers, when you are performing, she will hold up 3 minutes, she will hold up 2 minutes, and she will hold up 1 minute. And when you have the 1 minute, you need to be closing the store down, okay? And let somebody else have a turn at the mic. Somebody other than me. All right. So, first up. First up, we will do Andy. Andy is an architect. He's an educator and an entertainer. He's an entertaining educator. Isn't that awesome? Come on up, Andy. Show us your stuff.
Andy, your timekeeper's here.
Hi, timekeeper. Hi, everybody. Can y'all hear me? No? Can you hear me now? Are y'all there yet? Hi there. This is going to be fun. This has been fun, hasn't it? All of you crawlers out there that have been to everything and are going to go to the next venues, yeehaw! I started writing, 2 reasons I started writing. One is my grandfather's diary. He wrote a diary from 1937 to 1942. My grandmother gave it to me. My mom gave it to me and said, look at this. And I started reading it. And there he was, in his own handwriting, sitting next to me, telling me stories of his life. What's amazing about that is every one of you out there have that story. Take the courage to write it down. It could be just a little note in a notebook that you keep every day. Just a note about your life. Because it was amazing how my mother made coffee for my grandfather when he worked at the irrigation pump in Mermentau. I found that out when she was a little girl. So that is one of the reasons why. The other reason why is my firstborn grandson passed away after 6 months. It was tough. But I knew he had something to tell me. He told me to write a story about Christmas. And now as a tradition, I read it every year at Acadian Village and Vermilionville. And we tell a story about how we grew up when we were kids. But first, I want to have fun. Fun is always good to have. So I came up with a comic book. It's called the Hébert LeBlanc comic book. Right? Because I'm an Hébert and I'm a LeBlanc. And I know we got the most populous population out there. So I want all of y'all to raise your right hand now. Raise your right hand. Everybody raise your right hand. Now repeat after me. This is the Cajun Country Pledge. The stories you are about to hear are the whole truth, part of the truth, and nothing about the truth. So help me get out of these Louisiana swamps. Thank y'all. Now y'all official Hébert LeBlanc comedy members. So the one I want to read is, my brother and I we'd sit at coffee every morning, and we'd cut up. He's hilarious. I mean, he's an inspiration to me. And we came out with these 12 rules about crawfish. You know, because crawfish, they're an endangered species. So Crawdad had to explain to his son, Crawpierre, about how to be safe in Louisiana. So he said, children, you need to be aware of number one, if the food is free, you cannot flee. They put the food in their traps. Be sure the water around you doesn't reach the boiling point or above 212 degrees. If the water temperature around you suddenly rises, say your prayers. Your tail is cooked. Avoid the Cajuns. They eat anything that moves, forward or backwards. Be aware of all the shadows. They could be egrets, largemouth bass, or a Cajun. Always back out of a difficult situation gracefully. One scoot or two scoots. If you hear any sounds like there's one, this one, that one, over there, those over there, run, it's a large predator. He got your cousin last week. Rice is nice, but be aware of wire entrances. See number one. If the food is free, you cannot flee. In French country, the saying is, kiss me, I'm French. In French Cajun country, the saying is, you catch them, you boil them, and you eat them. If you find yourself in water with corn, potatoes, onions, and Cajun spices, I'm afraid to tell you the banquet is not for you, it's about you. If you find yourself in a sack with all your cousins, keep your tail straight and play dead. They always pick out the dead ones before they cook them. Being made aware of these lessons, Ticlaw lived for a long life. So you see, they give good lessons about crawfish. I'm going to tell you another story. Let's see. I'm going to tell you about the love of my life. This is a woman I met, and I always brag about her. She interviewed me for drawing her house plans when she had her third child. She didn't hire me. She said she should have afterwards. She had 9 kids with one husband. They got divorced. She saw me in a coffee shop. She knew I was an architect by trade. It's called Way Too Much Luggage. Some of y'all might relate to this. I met this beautiful young lady in a coffee shop in South Louisiana, probably Reve. We had met several years earlier when she and her husband were going to build a house. They had interviewed me about doing their house plans. She informed me at this time that they had hired their neighbor, and she knew I was an architect, so she struck up a conversation with me at the coffee shop. You see, she was studying civil engineering at the local university. She was having a difficult time visualizing three-dimensional drawings. Having grown a beard down to here, and a ponytail down to here, and wasn't interested in no woman in my life, she kept pestering me. And sure enough, I said, okay, I'll give you a lesson. I gave in to meet again for one lesson. We met at the same coffee shop several times and continued with our lessons. She had beautiful green eyes and a personality that was hard to disregard. Eventually, we traveled to the St. John Bridge near St. Martinville, Louisiana. I had designed a self-sufficient residence as a sophomore architectural project while at the university. She now could see the connections in the structural design work. I discovered she was divorced and had 9 children from her former husband. I met her children over the next few months. What complicated this was the fact that my youngest son and her oldest son were roommates in college. Wait, my mom's dating your dad? We got trouble. She'd been told by her children that in no uncertain terms that she would never find another man do the amount of luggage she's got. Meaning the 9 children, ranging in age from 24 to 4. And it was obvious in my presence with her that they were going to make sure that would be the case. I could see the children obviously had a very tight family bond. As one of the youngest told me, family first was their motto. And as one of the teens mentioned, they were not happy with this random man in their life. Despite all of this, our relationship developed into a deep understanding of each other. I finally had an answer for her whenever the question of luggage came up. I said clearly, I've been to an airport. I know we can lose the luggage when it's necessary. Although rolling down the runway was rough and the takeoff was questionable, and there has been turbulence along the way, we have been flying ever since, and flights have always been thrilling adventure with luggage included, sometimes. That's part of the fun. Now, one of the things, I just went to a seminar on STEM. You know, STEM, science, technology, engineering, and math. What was interesting is there wasn't a lot of English people there and literary people. So what I would like to see is some of you STEM folks, some of you literary writers, write something that goes with science, technology, engineering, and math. So I'm going to help you out. It's called the STEM Cheer, and this is something I came up with. So you ready? It says, S is for science, searching the macro to the micro. T is for technology, making connections in multiple directions. E is for engineering, evaluating strength, motion, energy, and power. A is for art, communicating human imagination by making, seeing, hearing, smelling, and performing. M is for math, universal language of addition, subtraction, and multiplication, 1 and 1. This is a little cheer that I gave to a group of kids, and it was amazing how excited they got using language to understand science, technology, engineering, and math. So please, you poets out there, do me some poetry in math and science and technology. Wouldn't that be great for the next Festival of Words and the next word crawl next year? Thank y'all very much.
Thank you. All right, so keep in mind this is a... Hello, I'm short. Y'all notice that? Keep in mind this is a fundraiser. T-shirts, hats, stuff, donation. Just throw $1 in. We're happy about that. All right, so next up, let us have Miss Martha Garner. Martha is our new executive director. What are we calling you? There you go, executive director. So here she is, Miss Martha. Thank you.
I can see you even without my glasses. Okay, good. Oh, I am acorn rich these days, stuffing my pockets and patting the bulges. I am acorn famous, walking a runway carpeted with greens and browns that roll and crunch as I stroll. Shall I let them fling me to the ground where I can be an acorn clown, rolling and mugging, running them through my fingers like Midas's gold? I am acorn magic, conjuring up fairy cups and saucers, waving my wand to reveal a secret tiny tree inside each one. Now I am acorn sleepy. Acorn rain falls on my roof. Tap, bounce, roll, till I am carried away in the acorn flood. Crow, teetering on the curb, feather gloss like spilled oil, BB eyes lusting, a crow. Perfect squirrel, served on a platter of pavement. Surprised eyes, beautiful, dead, tempting. The crow approaches, retreats. Road, curb, road. A dance of fear and desire. Drainage. The dark water of the ditch, the sloping sides, the shadowy tunnel under the road, the boiling rushing during a flood. So tempting on my darker days. This poem is called Glory, and it's for my mother. You loved morning glories, intensely blue, aspirational. Your life was not the life you dreamed. You wanted laughter, free like a child's. You wanted to be remembered fondly. You wanted to feel loved. Your life was not the life you dreamed. I hope that in the end, you climbed those vines and lost yourself among the blossoms, shed your earthly cares and disappointments, lived like a queen atop the shades of blue in your own morning glory. The next two poems are poems I wrote a really long time ago when I was first starting to write. This one is called Trust. My hand is trust. My hand in your hand is trust. Your hand in my hair is trust. Trust is trembling on the ledge. Trust is don't look down, look in my eyes. Trust is hold my hand, I won't let you fall, my toes flirting with the precipice. Trust is a link. Links can break. My hand in your hand is trust. Trust is stepping out over the chasm. Trust is your hands reaching to steady me. My hand in your hand is trust. Trust is thin ice cracking under my feet. Trust is a chain to save me. Trust is your hands on the chain, pulling me closer. A chain is as strong as its weakest link. Trust is a chain of iron. Trust is a paper chain. Trust is letting go, falling back, your hands to catch me. Your hands are trust. My hand is trust. My hand in your hand is trust. And the flip side of it is called doubt. Doubt is cancer. Doubt is love, twisted. Doubt is a garrote around my heart. Doubt is a weed growing on fast forward. Doubt is a time-lapse emotion. Doubt is picking at reassurance like a scab, reopening the wound, making it bleed. Doubt is shackles on my life. Doubt knows love can't be incarcerated, but I try anyway. Doubt is waterboarding my lover with questions. Doubt is ugly. Doubt makes you ugly. Doubt makes you desperate. Doubt is my fingers scrabbling in the dark for a light switch. Doubt is, damn, the light's on and I still can't see. Doubt is a cancer. Doubt does not respond to chemo. Doubt metastasizes. Doubt kills. And one of the people who paid me to write a poem for them was Patrice. And the poem I wrote for her, we're going to wait for her to come back in. She's sneaking around to take a picture of me. Yes, this is an unpoem for Patrice. Undepressing, unboring, unnegative, uncomplaining, unfailing, understanding, unostentatious, unpretentious, unexpected, unusual, unconventional, uncategorizable, unadulterated, unassailable, undeniable, unlimited. And my last poem was inspired by a blues trope in which food is used as a metaphor for sex. And it's called I Can Deliver, Baby, but I'm not on the waiter app. Whatever you desire, be it spicy, salt, or sweet, I can bring it to you, baby, and lay it at your feet. To make it lovin' gumbo, I know how to stir the pot, cook that roux until it's thick, and serve it steaming hot. If you favor some tamales, I'll use my little clay oven. You will only need one bite because my recipe is proven. My mixer will be cranking when you're craving something sweet. So take a big old mouthful, because my cupcakes are a treat. When you have a hankering for something really tasty, just give me a little call, but don't expect me to be hasty, because you know I can deliver, but good cooking takes some time. And when I bring the goods, a little tip will be just fine.
We're going to get Miss Nancy up here next. Okay. Nancy Copenhagen is a native of Missourian planted and blooming in Lafayette. She grew 4 children and has 8 grandkids. She values life in all stages. She is currently a flight attendant of 18 years at United and looks forward to seeing even more of the world when she retires. Miss Nancy.
Huh? Oh God, and I'll never have enough time. Okay, my name is Nancy. Like I said, I'm from Missouri. And my parents were older. I'm an only child. Now, my mother was scheduled to have a hysterectomy. And they didn't have ultrasounds back in the old days, as my grandkids say. And the doctor heard a heartbeat. So if this presentation's a little weird, it's not my fault. I was supposed to be a tumor. I guess because of the situation, I've always been very pro-life. I always wanted to have a family of my own. So my husband, he wanted just 2, but we had 5. Okay, so I am quite a salesman, as you can see. I have all those cupcakes like she was talking about earlier. So my little girl, who's now got a daughter of her own, one day she said, "Mommy, what's a simile? Can you give me an example?" Couldn't think of a thing. So we were living in Houston, Texas, and I am overwhelmed by Houston, period. And so very busy. I go to the grocery store and there's a man standing in line. And there was a grandma, too, behind him. And somebody asked the grandma, "How's your new grandchild?" And she said, "Oh, he's growing like a weed." Well, that's a simile. Well, I wasn't very good helping my kids with their homework, so I was so excited that I would have something to tell my daughter when I got home from the grocery store. Well, guess what? She had already figured it out and she was out playing. Well, I wrote this poem in 20 minutes. It's called A Typical Day. "He's growing like a weed," the grandma explained, "but he began as a seed," she went on to explain. "Not like a seed that you plant with your hands, but the egg of a woman and a sperm of a man. At conception, his life came to be, from a fetus to a child and an old one like me." The young man looked puzzled who was standing in line. Overhearing her comments, he responded, "At what time? My wife, and informed me that life begins at birth. And please, lady," see, I knew I'd forget it. "Please don't, no. The young man looked puzzled who was standing in line. Overhearing her comments, he responded, "At what time? My wife, and informed me that life begins at birth. And now, lady, you tell me it begins right at first. Please don't blame your wife for this lie," the grandma proclaimed. "Only through the study of photology are you able to see the tiny little heart that beats so strong, and the legs and the arms that are moving for so long. I have had many children myself, and once you give birth to a child of your own, does the miracle of life really hit home?" Don't take for granted the stuff that you hear. Look for yourself. You have nothing to fear. The one who bears truth has nothing to hide. Once you know for yourself, get others on your side. "Thanks for your time," the grandma proclaimed, and she carried her bags to the car just the same. But even though to her it was a typical day, the life of a child she was able to save. The man told his wife what the lady had said, and they chose to keep their baby instead. The wife soon felt the baby within, and together they knew they just had to grin. Life is a gift. Our Lady was right. Thanks to her caring, she's a beautiful sight. Like it said earlier, I had 5 children. My second child only lived 12 days. But I raised 4 children, and I'm very proud of them. And one of my daughters is there with her 2 children back in the back. So everybody grows up, all right? She's ahead of a healthy start for the family tree. A little ad there. So I signed my kids up for everything. I didn't want anybody blaming me that my kids weren't a success, all right? And who do they blame? Never their father, okay? It's always the mother, all right? So that was not going to be laid on me. So I started with a company called Discovery Toys. That's probably why I call this poem Discover Me. One day she said, Mom, would you just leave me alone? I'm a kid. I don't want to do something every day. I just want to stay home. And from this came this poem called Discover Me. I tried to parent my child with looks, but she just asked, can we read a book? I asked her to join all the little leads. Just let me be, she pleaded with me. I bought her all the designer names, and she said, Mom, let's play this game. Cable TV should be the thing. And she said, Mom, why don't we sing? Sing about love and fun and toys instead of asking me about boys. I am a child. Why can't you see? Often I wish I could sit on your knee. I just need your TLC, so sit right here and play with me. Like I said, we were in Texas. Now, my high school blew totally away in a tornado. We were so happy because we were in high school and we thought, oh my God, now we don't have to go to school. Well, we had to meet in church basements. All right. So I learned from that. Now, I knew about that, but I didn't know about hurricanes. All right. We just moved to Texas and Alicia is coming. All right. It was a bad one. And that was back in the 80s. So I wanted to leave town, but I didn't really understand what was going on, and the neighbor was putting boards up on his window. So I asked my husband, why are they putting boards on their window? Well, because there's a hurricane coming. So my husband, he said he had to play softball, all right? So he dives for the ball, cuts his arm. Now we have to go to the hospital. In the meantime, people are leaving, okay? I have a little tiny newborn, and I'm not happy, all right? I want to leave. Finally, after getting stitches, we got in the car. And while I was in the car, I wrote this poem. And I got to preface this. Al Roker was on my flight one day, and I said to Al, after I do my service, I have written a hurricane poem, and I think I could be famous. When I get done, I'm going to come back and tell you. And, you know, he's kind of funny, and he goes, oh, I can't wait for that. So I tell it to him, and he says, well, he doesn't say anything for a while, and then he says, I think you should call the Weather Channel. They have a lot of time to fill. Well, guess what? He is on the Weather Channel now. And I believe if I called him, I'm sure no other flight attendant has told him a hurricane poem. He will remember me, wouldn't you agree? Yes. Okay, it's called A Dinner Date. In the heat of the night, the silence is broken. Hammering brings fear without a word spoken. The pounding of hearts is also a sound when the media announces a hurricane is found. The mind starts rolling, the snowball begins. Panic grows while the calm tries to win. The rain suddenly and swiftly appear. Excitement shivers through the soul. Chances to take, no death toll, the ultimate goal. To leave or to stay, the odds are displayed. It seems like a game. When, please go away. One's not sure what he stands to lose. His life, belongings, adventure, or pride. But where nature's concerned, it's hard to choose sides. Only time will pronounce the outcome. Only God knows the winner. Let's say a little prayer and meet somewhere far away for dinner. Oh, she says I only have 2 minutes and I had like 5 more stories. So I didn't time this at home. I don't really. But this is a short one since we're getting close to the end. I believe in right because without it, there is an absence of God. I believe in God because without Him, there is an absence of love. I believe in love because without it, there is an absence of life. I believe in the value of life because without it, there is an absence in all mankind. Thank you.
Okay, next up we have Brian. Hello. Hello.
Much better.
Okay. I got trained on this thing and I'm still not doing it right. Yeah, please. Short people got no reason to. So, Brian. Brian is back by popular demand. His wife. Brian is a reader, not a writer. Originally from California. Been here for 3 years and enjoys green landscapes instead of brown. And is glad there is such a thing called boudin.
Brian, can you see me?
I can see you. Thank you. And can you hear me back there? No. Oh, that's good to know. Okay. Thank you. To me, one of the best things about being a reader is that I get to join in and be part of a conversation that crosses centuries or even millenniums. And today I wanted to share a couple of poems that have encouraged and challenged me at various times in my life. Poems that talk about inner strength and where to find it. When I was young, I was reading books by an author named P.G. Wodehouse. I see some nods out there. He's most famous for a couple of his characters named Jeeves and Bertie Wooster. And Bertie is a young English man with lots of money and about half a brain, and he's continually being rescued by his valet, Jeeves, who comes up with good answers and good situations. And when I was reading that, I came across this little section, and she buzzed off, a gallant figure. The Corn, that's a women's hunting group, trains its daughters well, no weakness there. In the fell clutch of circumstance, as I remember Jeeves putting it once, they do not wince or cry aloud. I mentioned this to him as the door closed, and he agreed that it was substantially so. Under the tiddly palms of whatever it is, how does the rest of it go? Under the bludgeonings of chance, their heads are, pardon me, bloody but embowed, sir. That's right. Your own? No, sir. The late William Ernest Henley, 1849 to 1903. Ah. The title of the poem is Invictus, and then the story goes on. But based on that little bit from the poem Invictus, I thought, well, that's amazing. Under the bludgeonings of chance, their heads are bloody but embowed. And that really struck a chord inside of me, and so I did a little more research, that dug a little bit to try to find the poem. Invictus was written by William Ernest Henley, and he had tuberculosis, and when he was about 19, he had to have one leg amputated below the knee. He had a type of tuberculosis that was in his bones rather than in his lungs. And only 4 years later, he went back to the hospital to start a treatment to hopefully save his second leg, because they were thinking they'd have to amputate a second leg. And he spent 3 years in the hospital. And toward the end of this 3-year period, he wrote this poem called Invictus. Out of the night that covers me, black as the pit from pole to pole, I thank whatever gods may be for my unconquerable soul. In the fell clutch of circumstance, I have not winced nor cried aloud. Under the bludgeonings of chance, my head is bloody but unbowed. Beyond this place of wrath and tears looms but the horror of the shade, and yet the menace of the years finds and shall find me unafraid. It matters not how strait the gate, how charged with punishments the scroll. I am the master of my fate. I am the captain of my soul. That poem amazed and strengthened and challenged me. You know, here's a response to adversity that seemed like way up here in terms of my own usual response, the way I could see it, of whining and complaining and fretting about stuff. And over the years, as I've shared that poem or parts of it with other people, almost everyone that I've talked to about that has responded with something. That poem has touched them. And a lot of people, it's like, wow, yeah, I like that. And other people, it's like, maybe that's a little over the top. But nobody seems to be untouched by it. But to me, it always seemed that last verse especially had something missing. Or as a Christian, to me, that last verse with its defiance and pride and arrogance just didn't sit right. And years after I read that poem, I read something by a man named John Milton who put it pretty well, what I was sensing in that poem. And John Milton wrote an epic poem. Epic means long and often boring. But in this poem, this is a story of how Satan tries to rebel against God and gets cast out of heaven into hell. And then the story goes on through Adam and Eve and Satan's role there. But anyway, when Satan first gets to hell, this is what Milton puts in Satan's mouth. Farewell, happy fields where joy forever dwells. Hail, horrors, hail, infernal world, and thou, profoundest hell, receive thy new possessor, one who brings a mind not to be changed by place or time. The mind is its own place, and in itself can make a heaven out of hell, or a hell out of heaven. What matter where, if I still be the same, and what I should be, all but less than he whom thunder hath made greater? Here at least I shall be free. The Almighty has not built here. He will not drive me from here. Here I may reign secure, and in my choice, to reign is worth ambition, though in hell. Better to reign in hell than serve in heaven. And I thought, wow, that's amazing. And I see that attitude in people all around me. I see that in myself sometime. But that's kind of where Henley's final verse was in that poem. I admire and aspire to have the strength that Henley writes in his poem Invictus, but I don't want to have that arrogance, that defiance in my life. And just recently, I found a rewriting of that poem by a lady named Dorothy Day. Now, Dorothy Day is a political activist and Catholic social reformer, not Doris Day, the movie star and singer. There's a big difference. I didn't know there were two people, and so as I tried to find out more about Dorothy Day, I ended up looking up all kinds of stuff about Doris Day, and it took me a while to find out who they were. Anyway, so she wrote this poem, and she called it Conquered. It's a rewriting of Invictus. Out of the light that dazzles me, bright as the sun from pole to pole, I thank the God I know to be for Christ, the conqueror of my soul. Since his is the sway of circumstance, I would not wince nor cry aloud. Under the rule which men call chance, my head with joy is humbly bowed. Beyond this place of sin and tears, that life with him and his the aid, that, spite the menace of the years, keeps and will keep me unafraid. I have no fear, though strait the gate. He cleared from punishment the scroll. Christ is the master of my fate. Christ is the captain of my soul. So I hope that some of this touches and encourages you. God has, I believe, given us the strength to stand and to deal with whatever we end up with in our lives. Thank you.
You know, I asked God why he didn't give me just 2 more inches. 2 more inches. That's all I needed. All right. Next up is Dominica Applegate. She is a freelance writer and a poet, and that's all she put in her bio. But she's a very dear friend, and she's beautiful. You're going to love it. And she is taller than me, so let me adjust this again.
Dominica, can you see me for your time?
Thank you, Bessie. All right. This is really low. How do you get
Yeah.
All right, here we go. All right. Perfect. Every night, just before my dreams tuck me in, I lay my mask to sleep. Turn over and gently weep for those whose pages have been torn from their ribcage and broadcast from the pulpit of shame, signing their name with a fistful of lead, sprinkling holy water on the sins of the saints. We are all fragile, like a bird without the span of her wings, like the way my head's so full of things and feelings are a faucet that I'd better turn off before my floors become warped, before my tongue meets the bruises on these cheeks that never quite smile enough. But maybe normal is a curse that locks you in a room without the sun to lead you to the other side of the room where the stars all die and shadows no longer hide, the alienated souls that have lost their meaning. My mother spent her whole life cleaning, polishing anxiety and depression spick and span, unable to carve her pain into a tree, unable to see that there was a way her pain could set free the restlessness within her frame, the caged bird singing her name, Donna. I remember a day when I was 8 watching her pour 4 bags of concrete to secure the swing set in our backyard. Knees pressed to the ground, she crossed her heart with a permanent mark, swearing this was where we'd settle. This was where flowers would bloom opposite this feeling of unrest, this feeling that life would just be better at a different address. But home is a 4-letter word that slips through my bones like an open window kissing the breeze of the rain. Like the phoenix burning the dreams of millions of refugees caught up in a cultural narrative in the belly of a whale, destined to fail. And just like us, clawing at redemption tooth and nail. But what is man but a time machine tick-tocking his way through life's journey? Billions of hearts beating a drum to the rhythm of more, more, more. Not realizing that if we could just stop keeping score, we could melt the sun a kind of yellow that could sunrise our collective power, bloom every flower through the cracks in our mask, scrape the rust from the hinges that grind salt into our wounds, the way Jesus wept, the way love is kept between lovers until the day they die. My life is a butterfly, a narrative with wings, the kind of story that spins threads pulling at every seam just to keep it together, just to get me back on stage, because I've been running through the entire house, burning all the damn sage, trying to convert the darkness into some kind of light that can read between my lines, offer me a Pulitzer Prize on a platter, where the only thing that matters is hope, that I'll be found among the rubble. Because this bubble's about to bust, always trying to figure out why we should outgrow our shadows and let shame adjust and let something greater find us and firmly plant us in the soil so our roots can aimlessly roam, so our bones can reset one by one these regrets that line our roads. Because sometimes we just need a light to come seek us in every place we hide, come break us into 1,000 pieces, come wreck us at our bedside, come gazing, come swaddling, come seeking everything that's been lost, come help us chase the truth, come like Pentecost, a gushing wind sweeping us up, then breaking us down, nailing every one of our windows shut, so we can feel safe, so we can feel loved, so we can feel right even when we feel so wrong. Because Christmas doesn't always come in the morning, and the layers of our psyches aren't wrapped with pretty bows. And despite the doubts displayed on the mantle and all our masks neatly hung on the wall, if there's one thing I am learning through it all, is that love, and I mean that unconditional, come to me as you are without your mask kind of love, is the gift that can heal us and celebrate every single story we're ashamed to tell. Thank you.
And now my dear friend Bonnie Barbier is going to help me with the second poem here.
Get better at that French now.
I don't know if we're going to be able to do this. All right. Ready? At times we're led to stormy waters.
Not so we will drown, but because life shares its wisdom
While we're out there thrashing around. This is for those whose life is hard, like a sucker punch square in the gut, like wind chimes choking on the air that thunders every door shut. For the wrong becoming right when the cabin pressure falls and the pills in your hands give rise to the walls that crumble the earth like bones on the floor.
like the way you tuck your secrets in the bottom of your drawer. For those who want more, who refuse to settle for status quo, who bypass the minds of the closed and paint a magnificent rainbow, handing out every shade of love, even on the brightest of days, because love is a kaleidoscope that should lead every parade.
This is for the women tiptoeing on heels of shame, pulling on every scar that hangs from the moon, not realizing that every wound, every moonlight kiss is a gentle whisper of summer bliss. No, is a gentle whisper of summer love, promising spiritual bliss.
For the fist that shakes hard against God, for the gods that break the hardest of hearts into 1,000 love bombs and sappy love songs, because with just one word, just one call, even the strongest building can bend and fall, like those who pluck skeletons from every closet and cuddle them up on a stormy night, not afraid of authenticity or intimacy when tears are shared in the middle of the night. This is for the big and the small, those that remind us that a life actually lived is a life that gives, even when it isn't easy.
Even when injustice is a boulder that crushes the shoulder of those without a voice or name.
For the shame that rips through your frame, when people look at you like you're a little bit off, like you're not quite good enough, or too sensitive, or a round peg trying to fit into a square hole, as if normalcy ever filled the emptiness within a soul.
This is for the family of Jamel Miles, a fourth grader who came out as gay at school. And classmates ridiculed and shamed him, thinking that somehow this was cool. For the weight of his pain he couldn't bear. Every taunt, every time they yelled obscenities, his heart would tear, stripping away all but his flesh, breaking his precious soul. And now every night his mother kneels beside his empty bed, his photo pressed upon despair, her cries soaring through the air, breezing the walls of every neighbor down the street, and not once will you hear them complain, because they know
that when you lose a child, grief stills the largest part of your soul. This is for those who refuse to act as if everything's all right. When war feeds upon greed, and greed is a monument in the Joneses' front yard, while the Mr. and Mrs., despite appearances, smiling cheek to cheek, are falling apart, whitewashing the stone wall, as if lip service has ever granted justice and liberty for all.
This is for all of you, pouring from a glass half empty, barefoot, dodging landmines that are thrown in your face. And the space program shoots you down because you just can't keep the pace.
Because society's screaming more, more, more. Fill your life with more shit. Come on, this is what you must do if you want to fit. For the visionaries and activists ablaze in the night. For poets and healers who are fighting, that know the fight is not against man, though some deserve a good blow, but rather it's about humility and love and a commitment to sow. Because the darkest of hearts is still a heart when you scrape off all the pain, when you gather their fragmented parts and help fit them together again. And this is for all of you, when life tries to shove hopelessness down your throat.
Take it all in.
Parch your thirst well.
Use
Use
it
it as fertilizer for every authentic story you tell.
Break through.
Birth vision.
Bud flowers that bloom.
Blossom thorns in the sides of injustice. And make love the hottest topic in the classroom. Dream all the mirrors broken and cut your scars some slack. Turn the break of your ache into a top 10 track. Something we can dance to. Something that will energize a higher reality that allows consciousness to rise and carry a flame that torches every false claim, calling the bluffs, refusing social programming that keeps people in the dust.
See, this is a call to us.
And this is a call to you to dive deep into the unconscious and surface with something new, something true, something that the world needs, and it's counting on you.
To fulfill the calling of the river that invites us to dance.
To take a chance to be better than we've been. To allow faith to chisel courage into our hearts again.
To wake up in the morning with a song for the broken and the hopeless, holding our torches high.
Spreading our love like a wildfire, devouring night sky. Because sometimes the waters will rise.
And sometimes we do feel all alone.
But when we come together, we are a lifeboat, a strength that will lead us safely home.
I love those two women. How awesome was that? Woo! I told you. Okay, so next we have Bruce Cohen. Bruce has over 50 years as an actor, director, producer, and teacher in both stage and screen. Bruce is currently board president of Festival of Words and drive-by coordinator for Festival of Words. Thank you, Bruce. You are welcome.
Hey Bruce, can you see me?
I can see you.
Your timer.
All right. Okay. That's better. I can see you, Sal. All right. When I say hush, there will be a hush over the entire room. Hush. Let's try it again. Hush. Very nice, students. Thank you. As it was announced, I am a teacher, so that's where that comes from. So I'm going to do something a little different. I do have a poem that I wrote today that I will share with you at the end, towards the end. But I'd like to do a little bit of storytelling. And I'm going to talk today about a person that I know, a personal friend. Let's call him Lucky Joe. Lucky Joe is a wild and crazy guy, and he's a go-lucky type of guy, but he runs into all kinds of bad luck. For example, Lucky Joe was walking down the street one day, and he saw a branch from a pretty green tree. Somebody had intentionally bent underneath a railing. And Lucky Joe said, well, that's not right. That can't be. I'm going to fix this. So he decided to stand over the branch that was bent under the pole, to lift it down with all his strength and to let it live. But what he didn't realize was as he was standing over the branch and he let it go, it sprung up and smacked him right in the face. And he landed on his derriere and busted his nose wide open. He had to get some stitches. So, Lucky Joe. Well, about 3-4 weeks later, Lucky Joe's at the beach. And man, he hadn't been in the beach in a long time. And that smell of that fresh salt air, and he just ran down and he dived into the water, into the ocean. Didn't realize it was shallow, ended up busting open his nose again, having to get more stitches, having to get the first aid from the beach to come down and help him out. Well, Lucky Joe, a couple weeks later, was bicycling. He was a bicyclist. And known all the way around as a bicyclist. He was very strong, was always went really fast, and on his daily route, he would always come up this steep hill. And so one day he approached the steep hill and put his head down and just rammed up that road. And he was so strong and he was going so fast, and he was in a bike lane. He didn't realize with his head bent down
that there had been an abandoned car left in that bike lane the night before. And not knowing that, he slammed into the back of that car so hard that he shattered the rear windshield of that car into a million pieces, flew back, did it like that, got up, felt his face was kind of wet, thought maybe it was a rain or something. His bike was totaled, picked up his bike, walked home, got into the bathroom, looked in the mirror, and of course it wasn't rain, it was blood all over his face. So he had to go more stitches. So that's the story of Lucky Joe. And I will give somebody a gift if they can figure out who Lucky Joe is. Yeah. Those are true stories. Those are true stories. Yeah, those are true stories. So I encourage anybody who has a story about Lucky Joe to let me know, and we can start building stories and eons and pages of Lucky Joe. But I do have a poem that I wrote today that I'd like to share on a more serious note. My time is going to be short, Sally.
You got plenty of time.
I know.
Go, Bruce.
How much?
6 minutes.
Oh, okay. Engage. Don't stand by like an innocent bystander, like you don't understand what's going on. Engage. How can you live your day-to-day unfettered? Engage. Make some sense of the insanity. Engage. Turning away from the wreckage like passing a major accident. Engage. It's not my problem in my personal bubble. Bust that bubble. Engage. Do not, I repeat, do not let your anger get the best of you and turn you aside. Engage. If you do feel the pain and suffering, turn your pain into action. Do not, I repeat, do not engage the hate. Engage the change. Engage. And I just want to say I saw that in a tweet from a friend, part of that, and I incorporated it into the poem. So thank you very much. Have a great rest of the word crawl.
Ooh, okay. So next up is Anna Marcotte and her high school students. She's a Karen Crow High School teacher who wants to share the talents of a few of her students.
One of these in the classroom, I think. Hi, so I'm a high school teacher, and you might know that in public high schools we work in a lot of structure. We have curriculum to follow and, deadlines to meet, so our poetry efforts are kind of stealth. We kind of slip them in where we can. Often the students will read a poem, and then I'll be like, you guys can do better than that, right? And they'll go, right. And so they'll kind of riff off of it. One example I'm going to read to start you with is from somebody who's not here. This was inspired by the prologue to Ralph Ellison's Invisible Man. I am an introvert. No, I'm not darkly secretive or anxiously shy or a shrinking violet, nor am I a timid mouse scurrying into the shadows. I am a reader, an explorer, a listener, an observer, and a thinker. And if you stop talking, you may even hear a loud mind. All right, so Mackenzie, you want to start us out? We read a poem called by a writer named Edward Montes. It's called I Remember, and we were practicing imagery. So Mackenzie's chosen her metaphor poem, okay?
This is called Miss Prickle. I am but a cactus, guarding myself with my prickles, my only protection against the vast desert called life. Not everyone can survive this desert. It is a dry and barren place, filled with predators. It rains but twice a year, yet I, the cactus, only need a splash or two of water to survive. I may take years for my flowers to bloom, but when I do, I am beautiful.
That's great, Mackenzie. I should mention, what did I give you to write that? Like 5 minutes? It's pretty awesome, huh? Okay, Lauren, what are you going to start us with? Okay, we're going to start with... Lauren's going to start us with one of her two. She has a couple great ones to share.
Tip it down, yes.
I'm nervous.
You'll be fine. We love you.
Okay. Ever since middle school, I've struggled with like a lot of stuff like depression and figuring out like who I am as a person. And last year, a lot of really tough things happened to me in a span of like maybe 2 months. So this is just talking about how I came to the realization of finding somebody that actually has helped me a lot. I'm in band, so this is called Showcase 2017. I remember the sound of trumpets playing a melody. I remember trembling members of high school marching bands, speaking of their hopes for a score of 1. I remember a blonde beauty by my side, whom then showed her personality was divergent in her appearance. I remember the succulent smell of funnel cake. I remember the broken spirit of a trumpet player, a cause of my wrongdoings. I remember the suspense of waiting for our scores, only to be followed by dread when our egos become scorned. I remember the jarring silence on the bus ride home, harboring thoughts between the choices of the blonde beauty and the olive-toned trumpet player. In the end, I decided my fate was for the trumpet player, whom 9 months later continues to play my soul's hymn. That's the end of the first one. The second one is talking about my struggle with depression. It's called Hurricane. I am a hurricane, tears flooding homes, screams roaring in the sky, lightning is the spark of which caused all this trouble. There is no way to tell when the storm will come, but we know it is on its way. Sometimes I weep quietly, causing a drizzle to appear. Other times I pour, unable to control what comes out and what happens, resulting in a raging storm. I lash out, causing fear and damage. The rain doesn't mean to hurt surrounding people, but unfortunately people get caught in the tidal wave. I've tried my hardest to hold it back, but how can one control a hurricane?
Thank you, Lauren. And Sandra Cisneros. Okay, Sage, come on up. Sage, I don't remember what you're going to be reading. Is it I Remember? Okay, Sage has a really great memory poem.
How's everybody doing tonight?
Better since y'all are here.
My name is Sage Turner. I am a senior at Karen Crowe High School, and I just wanted to share a very personal poem that I wrote about my childhood, and it really means a lot to me about me and my family. So it's called I Remember poem. I remember being awakened by ponderous footsteps on my father's face, his scratchy beard rubbing on my face while I pretended to be asleep. And while my mom glances over the stainless steel stove, simmering scrambled eggs and fresh bacon. I remember the hard aging red cypress wood table where we ate together, talking about the ranch and our day's work. From the anxious fluffy puppies outside to the enormous beautiful horses that casted a shadow over mine, while needlepoint grass scratched my knees while I play in the torrid sun. I remember proceeding to march behind my dad, following his footsteps in the dust, my short legs trying to keep up with his speedy pace onward towards the big red barn. The scratchy hay I sat on kept me company, making a crown as I was the princess of this kingdom. I remember the feed that smelled like syrup we fed to the horses, tacky like taffy. It was so pleasant to play with. The smells of leather filled the air from the tack room in the most satisfying way. I remember being covered in dust and dirt from running with the dogs in the humid air, tasting the salty sweat from falling from my brow. While the sun is setting on the cornfield, we walk into the front door and feel the slight breeze of Arctic air from the AC. I remember the warm feeling of the fuzzy PJs and the comfort I felt feeling both the warmth of my parents' bodies as we fell asleep. I think to myself about this is supposed to last forever, family. I remember hearing the echo of my dad's big jeweled piano accordion, filling every room with music, and the endless nights of going to dance halls where he performed. Strangers become close friends, all amazing people. The sound of boots stomping on old wood floors, an accordion, washboard, bass guitar, and drums boom through the speakers. I remember being on the stage bouncing to the rhythm he made. While I was the star of the camera, of course Mom was filming those old home videos. While the dance goes on, people are dancing, laughing, and cheering. I lay next to the speaker asleep, comforted by the sounds of Zydeco Cajun music. I remember the many rides home and my head resting on my dad's lap, listening to the truck rumble on the road, thinking to myself, there is no better feeling than the love here between all of us. This is home. And my dad's actually here right now. He's Gino Delafos. He plays Zydeco music. And I wanted to thank my mom, Miss Yvette, my dad, and Antonio. You guys have always been such a... You guys have always been such an inspiration to me. And you guys helped me mold me to be the person that I am today. And it means so much to me that you guys are here. And I wanted to say thank you, everyone, for coming out and listening to me and all the other poets. It means a lot to us, especially the kids at Carencro High School, because we really don't get a chance to do this too often. And I want to say thank you to Ms. Marquardt for introducing me to this, and I really had a good time, and I was really kind of nervous, but I had a great time. Thank you guys so much.
One more. Okay, Coral. Coral is going to do her I Remember poem.
Yeah. This is about human perseverance. It's called Moving On. I remember moving on. I remember dancing in the living room of apartment 33, dancing to Iranian music from my mother's childhood as she scrubbed dirty dishes and I dusted dusty shelves. I remember stealing my brother's Legos to make creations of my own, and the sheer pain of stepping on those said creations. I remember the rituals of sidewalk chalk on hot summer evenings and dates with my mother, filling coloring pages with our imaginations. I remember plunging in freezing water even when we weren't supposed to, attempting to steal just a few more minutes at the apartment pool. I remember my first time at the aquarium in downtown New Orleans. Walking through that tunnel of fish, millions of organisms floating and swimming and dancing around my small head, colors pushed up against the glass, scaring me as well as thrilling me. I remember dreaming of that day for years after. I remember playing spaceship with my dad and brother on my mom's old bed, an umbrella as the roof of our giant ship, his old Pac-Man joystick controllers as steering wheels. I remember shooting Nerf guns and smashing buttons to defend against the aliens attacking our crew, and then laughing as we fell out of the imagination he wrapped us in. I remember tall bunk bed castles and soft pillow forts of plenty that were all too real for my brother and I. I remember the tears on my mother's face during my parents' divorce, and how it hurt her much more than me and my brother could ever understand. I remember my homeless father plugging in an extension cord into the apartment so he could have electricity in his mobile home that was actually just a minivan. I remember how magical I thought it was for my dad to live in his car. Seeing all these Christmas lights he used as decorations, how happy he was to live in such a small place. I thought it was awesome. I remember when I was declared as homeless too, and had to move into my grandmother's dusty brick spare rooms. My dad later moving in also. I remember crying in the tour room for my parents to stop fighting in front of the bathroom, because I had to pee for hours and didn't know how to get around their inexplicable aggression. But I remember moving on. I remember growing a liking in my grandmother's house. I swung on PVC pipes on her massive pecan trees. The wind would rush through my hair and blow away my fears. I remember the smell of Gigi's coffee cake that my family ironically ate with a glass of milk. The taste of butter, cinnamon, and home that sticks on your tongue for hours. Soft crumbles of cinnamon sugar sparkled the pan as young grandchildren fought for crumbs. I remember the intensity of family card games and laser tag that turned into warfare. I remember meeting my best friend down the street and the transition of two families joining into one. I remember those friends had gathered bonfire wood with me and prepared to sleep under a blanket of stars in their forgotten backyard. We climbed trees to escape the grown-ups and climbed trees to escape ourselves. I remember Oreos and milk that we stole from the fridge when their parents were gone and split over a game of Lego Batman on the old Xbox 360. I remember sitting outside with this family and seeing that same fridge that we stole Oreos from catch on fire. The heat and intensity of a sudden house fire. The panic of children running into the house to save cats and other family members. I remember tears and screaming and the blame that came with disaster. Fire and fear and fright. And most of all, I remember comfort. We all slept in my grandmother's house that night, that family of 6 kids that joined my family of 2. We all joked and laughed and tried to forget ourselves. And with my head held high and my hopes held tight, I remember us all moving on.
It's fine.
Oh, okay. Is it okay?
It's good. It's fine because
No, I just wanted to do one more because one of the things that I get to do, I mean, that's my job. I get to read that. But one of the things that I also get to do is I get to write with them, and I'm inspired. I hadn't planned to read, but I saw one of my favorite students, old students, sitting there. And when I wrote a poem with the class of 18 last year, you're in here. So I wanted to read something that I wrote and dedicate it to Marissa. And this is one where the students had to go around and take a picture of something that they wouldn't forget on campus. And this is my version. Please photograph the book cabinet in 7110, the big black metal one with the frozen wheels crammed with words and ideas that bored and woke. Look, zoom over there, the second shelf holding ABC, Beowulf, and Persepolis, the ones that morphed the too cool for school non-readers into book nerds for an hour or so. Take a picture of the third shelf, bowing with the Nortons and Bedfords, backache rendering weights laden with windows and doors and mirrors that invited the class of 13 inside, outside, and beyond. Don't forget the Bronte stuffed in the corner of the bottom shelf, loved by the class of 5th, budding feminists who cheered and chided Spunky Plain Jane. Get a close-up of that Cisneros, the eggshell blue delicate one, hiding in the center, where the ugly daughter whose name means sadness and waiting showed us how Rafaela, who eats rice sandwiches and drinks papaya juice on Tuesday, is not so far away. I want you to get the bottom, with the helter-skelter piles of cheap paperbacks with broken spines and curled pages, worn and torn from hours, with a lady who could drink hot blood and a mother who protests too much, men hoisted on their own petard with green-eyed monsters, and a man or a fish. I want you to get the spot where a life of pie sat until it left for college with Shelby. Don't miss Shelf 4 and the Epic of Gilgamesh. Thin and dark, mysterious and familiar, Ishtar became a stiletto, and Enkidu a football in the assessment puppet show way back when creativity lived here. Take your time and take the pictures. Please photograph the book cabinet in 7110.
What a great job she has. So thank you all for coming. Please do join us at 8 p.m. at Dat Dog at our next location. Don't forget Festival of Words, first weekend in November. And on next Friday night in Breaux Bridge at Test Center for the Arts, we're going to have a Rumi reading and an open mic. So anybody who has Rumi-inspired poems would be invited to read. So Test Center for the Arts on Bridge Street in Breaux Bridge from 6:30 to 9. I'm cooking Persian food, so y'all come. Oh, we haven't, no. She said no. Did you change your mind? You changed your mind again? Do we have time? Y'all want to hear Alex Poetic Soul? Yeah, go for it, girl.
Bessie, I love you. I love you too. But we can't do this. You have to bring it up for me. I'm sorry. I love you. I quit. I quit. How's everybody doing? Y'all having a great time? Yeah. Raise your hand if you've been here since noon.
All the people who work on the team,
Right. So I will raise your hand if you know I won funding for a project recently. It's called the Eyes of the Sun Project. It is, it's originally the name of a poem, but we are also making painting a mural of this poem. The poem is written by students incarcerated in Lafayette Parish Juvenile Home. And I mean, I'm talking about the story always makes me a bit emotional because, I had about 30 incarcerated youth working to create their best line to contribute to a group poem, then direct the performance and direct a video. And we've done a TEDx talk about their poem, and now we're painting 2 murals, one at the Martin Luther King Center on Willow, and then Mesh's Donuts on Willow. Mesh's has donated the brick around their building and the storage building in the back next to their community garden. And Martin Luther King Center has they want to build an art corridor with the poem. So would you guys like to hear it? For those of you who haven't? Okay, great. Can you hear me without the mic? Yes. Yes, great. When I hear click, clack, I think about my life. I'm hungry as a pit bull, and money is like food. You never know how much you're gonna get, and I've been stressing so much, I don't know what to do. What should I do? What can I do? Locked up like a caged wild animal. Aggressive as a volcano, I used to be in poverty. Now people just think I'm infamous. Untamed. But my future is true and as bright as light. I gotta get my education, gotta get control, can't let my anger get the best of me, but stress runs through my veins. And I smell fear in the waves of the ocean. I was on a mission from God, but I guess I failed. Stuck in my cell with accumulated thoughts, thinking about my next meal. And sometimes I wonder who really understands me. I get in trouble when I'm mad. They say that I'm insane because I'm walking through the rain, but you gotta walk through the rain to be cleansed of the pain. And sometimes I wonder who's gonna take that time with me. My dad was never there to watch my first fall. I know I come from a bad subdivision, a lot of pain and evil thoughts, but this life is not a game. It's a blessing. And ambition is the road to greatness. And learning is freedom. And I gotta make it to college. People quit on me, but my faith keeps me rolling. So I strive hard so I can be successful despite my mistakes. I strive hard so I can be successful despite my mistakes. I strive hard so I can be successful despite my mistakes. Failure is not an option, but success is. And I testify from my heart that what I say is real. Thank you.